Good morning, guys. This is Issues with Toddy One Skip. I am Toddy One Skip. Welcome. Welcome to our channel. And I say especially our channel because I have something a little different that I'm putting out today. So I had the privilege actually to speak to somebody who was willing to share their life story with me. But the surprise of it is that I actually was going after one story, which I thought, but another story unfolded as well. So, as some of you know, my channel started basically, it started getting traction when I was covering some Scientology things. I went to cover somebody who had spent 10 years in an Australian prison for attempted murder. As I was learning their story and I was interviewing them for about 3 hours, it came out that they were a Scientologist for a long time. So, guys, it's a 3 hour interview that I am still trying to edit out, but nobody wants to watch 3 hours at a time anyway. So I figured I'd break it down so that you guys could listen to the story, take it in, chew on it, and then, when we bring the second part of the story up, you'll be a little bit familiar with it. Maybe you'll have an interest in hearing the second part. Maybe you won't. But I thought that I'd share that with you. This is a community member, somebody who has changed their life. Now, listen, guys, some of you are going to think this is a good idea, and some of you are going to not be happy with this idea. Everybody has a story to tell. I think that we should just listen to the story. So, guys, this is Matt, and I just want you to hear the story. And if you guys want to hear part two, let me know in the comments.
Yeah, so I'd been out of Scientology. I'd been disillusioned with the church. I'd been unhappy. I'd had some arguments with some things, and the whole facade of the church broke down. And I got to the point where I was like, F it kind of thing, And I was in a bad way. I started drinking pretty heavily. I started doing some drugs. I was doing marijuana. And look, I got nothing against marijuana, by the way, because I still indulge
Me
every
too.
now and again on marijuana. Oh, cool, cool. But I was actually hooked on methamphetamine.
Okay. Yeah.
I got introduced to it at the time, and just the series of events. My mother died.
I'm sorry. Sorry to hear that.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah. And it just around, I left the church. My mother died. My girlfriend left me for another man, and it just all. I lost my job. It just all fell apart for me, and I lost the will to live.
Ask you a question. I'm sorry to hear that, and I don't mean to interrupt there. That's just where it happened. I
That's okay.
don't want to lose this train of thought either. So you were disillusioned with the church because of the practices of the church?
I just noticed a lot of behavior from staff members that I thought was not indicative of a proper Scientologist. Because you got to understand, I believed in Scientology. I believed it was a real thing.
Right.
I
Okay.
really did.
And so you were disillusioned. That was the word you used, and that's absolutely precise. So when you, and this I'm just dying to ask. So when you quit the organization, first of all, was your mom a Scientologist?
No,
Okay.
never.
Really? Wow. And your dad was very invested, is very invested in it.
My
So,
my dad and mum got divorced when I was a child, when I was a young
oh,
boy.
oh, okay. 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 I didn't know that. So, again, sorry about the loss of your mom. When you were disillusioned with the church and all of that you kind of said, I'm not doing this anymore. I'm done with this. F this. And then your life takes a turn where it's just bad, where everything you touch basically turns to shit. Do you
Yeah.
stop and say, do you ever question and stop and say, oh shit, this is because I'm not a Scientologist. This is because I spin on Scientology. Was there anything like you're getting what you deserve because of what you did to Scientology? Or was that ever in your mind?
Yeah, good question. Absolutely, it was that. So because when I quit Scientology, I was what's called mid-process. So I was mid-process on the TRs and objectives, which is actually now referred to as a survival rundown. That's the new name for the course. And if you're and in Scientology, they tell you that if you're mid-process, a lot of crazy S can happen to your life. And so, and also there's a term, and you may have heard it before, it's called blowing.
Yeah,
And
leaving.
if you, yeah, exactly. And so if you blow mid process, they say that all kinds of wild stuff can happen to your life. And when I blew from the church, I was mid process and you know, that belief in Scientology doesn't just leave you overnight. It's a long it's a long process to actually completely let go of that belief. And so for a while I was did kind of hold this belief that I was, you know, my belief, I don't know, channeled the direction of where my life was going in a way. I believed that because I was really mad at the church. I was mad because I made a complaint at the church and they didn't take my side. And long story short, I got upset with the church, and one day I walked out and told them to F themselves and F you, I don't care what you do, F the lot of you. I drove home on my motorcycle and never came back really. I did go back a few times, but never on course. Um, and I'm still, as far as I know, welcome to go back, I hope. Um, not that I want to go back, but yeah, long story short, I got upset, I walked out. But
Well,
yeah, I felt like I was.
you don't want to be kicked out of the church, from my understanding, because then they could um, cause pressure for your dad. He might not disconnect from you, but why make his life any more miserable? If you keep stump, chances are they're just going to leave. They'll let bygones be bygones. Yeah.
Scientology, it's not in your best interest to make my dad disconnect from me because you would lose all that money. It's not worth it, Scientology. Don't do it. Okay? That's
Yeah.
my message to Scientology. Um, but yeah, I felt like I was a piece of crap, basically. And so, because I felt like that and I was in such a bad place, I was doing drugs. I was, you know, having promiscuous, you know, relations. I was doing all kinds of crazy stuff. I was just living like Sodom and Gomorrah, you know, and basically I became just so whacked out that, you know, I had a girlfriend that was also abusing drugs at the time. And anyways, she was basically telling me that she was abused her whole life. She was abused her whole life from her father, from her brother, in a sexual manner, and and she was telling the truth. You know, she said that one day she came home from school, and she came into her room and she caught her older brother wearing one of her dresses.
Hmm.
And when you didn't have the faintest idea about, you know, anything that the brother might be going through in terms of experimenting with that kind of stuff. And she just said, "What the hell are you doing? Get out of my room, blah, blah, blah." And he basically, from what she told me, pinned her down and R-worded her. And this happened more than one time. And when she went and told the mum, she had a very abusive, controlling mother. And she told the mother, and the mother basically said, "You're a liar. That didn't happen. You're a liar." And didn't believe her and punished her. Never believed her. And she just had insecurity issues and self-esteem issues her whole life following that. And she was very troubled. And anyways, during this time, she broke up with me. And it was a difficult time for all of us, and I understood, but I was so whacked out in my mind. I thought she might break up with me, but I'm going to do her one last thing she never allowed me to do. And I sent the brother a message telling him what I thought of him. How could you abuse your sister? She never would have allowed me to send a message like that while we were together. And perhaps I crossed a boundary by messaging the brother. I probably crossed a boundary, right? But in my mind, I thought, I'm gonna say my peace of mind. And he basically said, "Well, if you're such a tough guy, come meet up," and that kind of thing. And we met up, and he was ready to fight. He was ready to fight. And he said, "Why don't you, come inside?" And he pulled a knife on me. And in the heat of the moment, he dropped that knife. I was high on methamphetamine at the time. So I'm like reacting quickly. I pick up the knife and I stab him like 2-3 times in his abdomen. And he's freaked out. He drops to the ground, and I run out the house. I'm like, fuck, I need to get the hell out of here. I run. I'm like, it's called fight or flight mode, and I'm in flight mode. And I get about 50 meters down the street, and I'm thinking, if I leave him there, he's going to die. And I'm probably going to get caught. If I get caught, I'm looking at a murder charge. But I thought if I call the ambulance, if I call them, he might have a chance of living, and I might be looking at a attempted murder charge. And I called the ambulance, and I went into the house, and he was still very much conscious, and he was like, "Hey," he thought I ran back into the house to help him, and he's like scared. He thinks I'm coming back to finish the job.
Right.
But I actually had a very loose kind of shirt on, and he was a skinny guy. I wrapped his shirt around his waist as best I could to stop the bleeding. But I had called the ambulance and said, "Look, this guy's been stabbed. He's going to die in 10 minutes if the ambulance don't come. You need to send the ambulance now." And I dragged him out of the front door and got in the car and drove off because I still wanted to get away. And the ambulance did come and save his life. But on the other hand, he identified me, and I did get caught. I was thinking about going on the run, but I turned myself in just because I knew that it would be pointless.
Yeah,
it would be pointless to try to run.
Yeah, you can't.
You're going to get me.
Yeah, and you're on an island. You're on an island.
Yeah.
So it's a big island, but you're still on an island. And you can't live your life like that if you want to have relationships continued with your family, because
They're going to get me. Yeah.
You have to survive, right? I mean, people don't realize that. So I have a question. My question is, I've never done meth before. I've dabbled in drugs in my past.
Yeah.
So you went from being high to a rationalization at some point in a fair amount of time when you were running. I mean, something struck you and said, what am I doing? Like, what am I doing? So how does that happen? What, like, if you could, if you're able to, like, how did it parlay from you should have never done that to my girlfriend and you should have never come to me with a knife to in the heat of anger and being messed up, you jab them 3 times and then you're running to save your own life and then you stop and reality hits you and you're like, and then you're thinking so lucid.
Yeah. So the police were looking for me, and I had gotten calls from my dad actually.
No, I mean, no. But you're the one that called the police yourself. I mean, you called 911 or whatever it is in Australia. 999 is it in Australia?
It's 000.
Oh, okay. It's important to know if anybody goes to Australia that's listening to this, if you're in trouble, you dial 000, right? So
Yeah.
when you, but something you said as you were running away, you realized, holy shit, if he dies, I'm going to go for murder. And
Yeah.
I really don't want him to die. But if I help him, he probably won't die. And if I get caught, it will be attempted murder. So how did you go from the jab to you're running and now it's like things are dawning on you? Is that how meth works? I mean, some people could be like scared sober in a moment when they get picked up. They could while they're driving, they could all of a sudden get a dose of lucidity, right?
Yeah.
So I guess I'm asking, how does that happen with meth? Because I'm ignorant to it.
Yeah. So in the heat of the moment, I obviously we're in a fight, and I'd obviously in the heat of the moment stabbed him 3 times. Yeah.
So you're on the run. You end up. He identifies you, and you realize the jig is up.
Well, yeah. I mean, because I was the one that called 000. The ambulance obviously came and thought this is a critical case. We have to come right now and save him, and they saved his life. Thank God. Otherwise, I wouldn't be talking to you right now. Um, but I thought I had ran away, and I thought, you know what, he's 100% could die if I don't call for 000. And so they saved him, and obviously the police got involved, and obviously he identified me. It wouldn't be hard to find out who I am. And I'm on the run. And my family's basically calling me up. My dad's calling me up. And hey, Dad, what's going on? Hey, the police are looking for you. Um, you need to turn yourself in, basically. And I'm thinking, no, like, no, 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 no. I'm going to go on the run like OJ. That's what I'm thinking. But, after about 40 minutes of weighing it up in my mind, I'm thinking, I'll be living in fear of getting caught. The police, they're always going to get you. They're always going to catch you. And I reluctantly turned myself in,
How long
faced what I had to
was
face.
it the same day that that it happened, or how long was it later that you turned yourself in?
It was the following day.
Okay.
Following day, I turned myself in and I was charged with attempted murder. And I was what's called bail refused, which means that
You ain't getting out.
you ain't getting out. You're staying in jail until your trial.